welcome to the member section. Good to have you with us, and thank you for tuning in here to our second segment with Walter Graham. We're going to change gear a little bit and talk about fluoride. And Walter, I'd like to begin to talk a little bit about a very good example that you talked with me about earlier in regards to the math, I think, of fluoride that you talked about. This was basically from how much fluoride actually is being put out there, so to speak, if we're talking about fluoridation of water, and then how much actually ends up in the target people, so to speak, mainly about kids and children, because they say that fluoride is to prevent decay of teeth. If you will, tell us a little bit about that math of fluoride that you talked about.
Yeah, well, I would always start this off by saying that the concept of fluoride doesn't make any sense at all, putting fluoride in the drinking water. Because what you're really saying is that I have to drink somebody else's medicine for the rest of my life for a condition I don't even have. And why am I doing this? Why are you asking me to do this? Because there's a small group of children in the population somewhere who don't brush their teeth, they eat lots of sweets, and they drink nothing but fizzy drinks all the time. That's why they have such bad teeth. Well, if they're drinking fizzy drinks all the time, they're not even drinking the water supply. So what's the point in putting it in for them? It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And then if we look at it even further, what if this small group of children get another complaint like hemorrhoids? Am I going to have to take hemorrhoid cream for the rest of my life? Where does this end? It's a silly concept.
Right.
We should not be taking other people's drugs. But if we do the math that goes behind this, you'll see how even stupider it is. They're putting fluoride in 100% of your water. Now, the DOE, or the government water department, at least in Britain and in Ireland, and I'm sure by you, it's the same thing, they admit in every water supply that they lose about 40% of all the water in underground leaks before you even get it. So that's 40% of the fluoride going out in the environment, where by international law it's not allowed to go. Now, out of the 60% that's left that's coming towards you, industry, and I'm counting farming in this, use 7/8 of the water supply. So they're the largest user of the water supply. So that's 7/8 of the 60% that you bother to fluoridate gone.
Right.
Now, out of the 1/8 that's left of the water supply that you fluoridated, that's coming into your house, you use less than 1% of it for drinking. You wash your clothes, you flush the toilet, you water the lawn, but you're not drinking it. So you're drinking less than 1% of that 1/8. Now, how many children in the population have the really bad tooth problem we're trying to cure? It's about 3%. So you've got 3% of the population drinking 3% of 1% of 1/8 of 60% of all the water you bother to fluoridate. Does this sound like a logical way to deliver a drug to a small target audience who don't even drink the water supply because they're drinking fizzy drinks?
I had this idea that in many cases the government and so forth is always about the efficiency on how to either hit the direct targets or whatever phrase they want to use. But this is in regards to what you said here with the math. This is insane. This is
it's totally ludicrous.
Totally ludicrous. Exactly. Yeah.
And if we take it further, first of all, you can't even guarantee that the target audience are getting the water supply in the first place.
Right.
And then you can't be guaranteed the amount they're getting. Because, let's face it, when you put fluoride in the water, you put it into your boiled potatoes.
Yeah.
When you put it in the water, you put it in your beer and in your tea. If you put it in the water, you put it into your rice. You're putting it into every food and drink that's cooked or manufactured out of that water supply. So you're not getting the 1 part per million or whatever they tell you you're getting. You're getting it from all these other sources now, too.
So that when they say 1 part per million or whatever, they're only measuring the amount of what they think that, how much water people drink from the tap? Is that it?
Well, yes, and what they're also doing is they're only measuring the 1 part per million at the point they put it in. When it goes through 6,000 or 7,000 miles of pipe to get to your house, do you think it stays evenly distributed through a whole water supply?
No.
They're going to come out of your tap at exactly 1 part per million? Or could it turn left at the first house and they get it all? Here's the factory.
Yeah.
they've done studies that have shown that the houses closest to the factory get large doses, and the people at the end of the pipe run get virtually none. So there's no controlling the dose when you do it like this. Plus, you put it into all the food and beverages that are made out of the water, thereby guaranteeing everybody gets an overdose. And it also isn't even taking into account getting it from other sources like your toothpaste, mouthwashes, dental floss, and drops and tablets and things that people are on.
Right.
And it's also in pesticides. It's in a lot of pesticides and herbicides. So it's sprayed on your food anyway.
Right, right.
It's a killing agent in pesticides. It's also in the CFC that have cut the hole in the ozone. The chlorofluorocarbons, the F is fluoride. So it's raining down on all of us anyway. So we're already getting a ton of this without adding it to the water supply. And then it's in some pharmaceuticals, a lot of pharmaceuticals.
Well, again, actually, we're back to, the antidepressant we talked a little bit about in the first segment. In many cases, a lot of fluoride is in a lot of these so-called SSRIs, So,
that's right. No, but that's ensuring then that you get even more for those people who are on these.
Yeah, exactly. And this is interesting also, though, because we can, I guess, right away here connect this with the experiments that was done during the Nazi Germany when the concentration camps inmates were getting they were getting fluoride. I don't know how they got it, either in the water or through something else, but they did this for specific reasons. Tell us a little bit about that, Walter, if you will.
Well, from my understanding of it, in my reading, is that the Germans were experimenting using fluoride during the war because they wanted to see what effects it would have on human beings. They knew that it was neurotoxic, and so it would cause different neurological effects. And what they found was that at a certain level it would kill you outright. Very small amounts of fluoride kill you. But if they went to really small amounts, it caused changes in the brain and thinking patterns. And one of the areas of the brain they were quite interested in was that it made you very lethargic and easier to control.
Right.
Certainly in a death camp or in a camp where you're keeping prisoners, this is quite a handy thing to do.
Yeah.
So I've also read that whenever the Germans rolled into Poland, they put it into their water supply. I don't know if that's true, but I wouldn't be surprised because I know at the end of the war, the Americans and the Russians who captured the scientists who worked on these programs, they then started using fluoride in prisons in Russia, in America.
Yeah. Do you know if there were any kind of water fluoridation anywhere in the world before Second World War ended?
I don't think there was. To my knowledge, I don't think there was any before the war. Nobody had this concept of dumping fluoride into a water supply.
And go ahead.
And part of what the American government would cite for their proof that fluoride works, they started looking at places that had naturally occurring calcium fluoride in their water supplies. And then they tried to relate the fact that certain people in that population had low tooth decay. And they tried to say then that it was something to do with calcium fluoride. But this is not the same as what's being put into the water supplies today.
Right.
We're not getting calcium fluoride put into our water supply. We're getting a chemical cocktail, which is actually the waste product from the phosphate fertilizer and aluminium industry.
Yep, exactly. You're definitely right. And we can talk maybe before we go into that area a little bit about some of the, you say, a chemical cocktail, because you was it you personally that went to one of the water plants and actually asked them for a sample of the fluoride and then did a chemical analysis of that?
No, I was organizing groups in the south of Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland, and one of the groups, one of their members went to a water treatment plant and asked for a sample of the what's called hydrofluorosilicic acid or hexafluorosilicic acid, and they got a sample in a plastic bottle, which they then took to an independent lab in Dublin and had it analyzed to find out what contaminants were in it. Because we know that the phosphate rock that the fertilizer industry use, it has all kinds of other contaminants in it. It's not pure. It has mercury and lead and arsenic and all kinds of things in it that you wouldn't want.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever they did the analysis in Dublin, they found that the acid, which, by the way, is a very, very corrosive acid, the most corrosive acid on Earth as far as I know, that they found that it was contaminated with lead, mercury, cadmium, all kinds of other things that you just would not expect to get put into a water supply. And not only that, but it also has uranium in it, because one of the biggest sources of uranium is phosphate rock.
Yeah.
So it's got radioactive particles in it as well.
So this is, oh my God, this is, we're kind of getting at the heart of it here, so to speak. This is directly then connected to the aluminum industry, and also because I asked you, in regards to after World War II, if there was any water fluoridation occurring, because I guess at that time, before they started doing some of the atomic bomb manufacturing, atomic energy and so forth. At that time, before that time, I mean, there wasn't that much, I guess, fluoride as a a waste product out there, so to speak. But now, after World War II, when we have certain kinds of these industries popping up here and there, do you think it is the case that they needed some place to actually dump the fluoride? What do you think?
Well, it certainly has been handy for them, because you look at this. I read an article from Canada which showed that there's an aluminium factory that's on the St. Lawrence Seaway, and they're required by law not to dump any more than, I think it's 32 tons of fluoride into the St. Lawrence Seaway in any 1 year, because any more than that would kill every fish in the river.
Mm.
But they still produce another 30-some-odd tons of fluoride waste.
Right.
So what they do with it is they sell it to Calgary for water fluoridation. And what happens to it then? 99.9% of it goes out, down the sink and down the sewers and out into the St. Lawrence Seaway.
Yeah, yeah.
Thereby bypassing international law and the laws of Canada, and going straight into the St. Lawrence Seaway, where it's not allowed to go, and into the environment. So they've managed through that process, at least in this article they stated it, to bypass international law and turn garbage into gold.
Yeah.
Because now they don't have to dump it anymore, which they were required to do. They were required actually to neutralize the acid, put it in a lined landfill,
mm-hmm.
and then bury it.
Right.
Now, that costs a lot of money, and it has to be transported. It's a very corrosive acid, as I say. Now they've got you paying for it, and you're putting it in your drinking water, where 99.9% of it, as I told you, the arithmetic, goes out in the environment, down the drain.
Yeah.
So it's very handy for them, for certain.
So it could be then potentially two different kind of agendas coming together at the same point here, meaning that they looked at this problem and said, hey, wait a minute, you know what we could do? We could sell this kind of back to them, and we can, give it to them. I'm talking about the population now at the same time, meaning that they get rid of it and can bypass the law. In that way, they make a lot of money, and then they make even more money in regards to that they can sell it. And then they get the third agenda, of course, which potentially at this case could be that they actually want to dumb down the people. They want a docile, as you say, lethargic people. Do you think that could be one of the main agendas for this?
Well, I can point out to you that certainly the government must know how bad this stuff is. And I'll give you an example. In every country in the world that this is put into the water supply, it has never, ever been tested for safety as a drug. Yet they're putting this in every water supply in Australia, in New Zealand, in Canada, in America.